Welcome back to Boring Gear Reviews. Let's talk about the David Gilmour tone and if this pedal can do it. A couple weeks ago, I released a demo for the Goblin tone distorter from Humanoid pedals. This is a really awesome fuzz pedal that kind of finds its home somewhere between like a rat and a big muff and a fuzz face. And I got a comment asking if this pedal could do the David Gilmour thing. When people talk about David Gilmour's tone, I find for the most part, the first thing that's going to come to mind are his lead tones. And for me, the first one that jumps out at me is his solo in Time off of Dark Side of the Moon. That's not the only place you hear that tone, but that's always one that sticks out for me. What I hear in this tone is this really kind of compressed and thick low end, and then this sort of like blistering high end, this kind of piercing. It's not harsh. It just really cuts through. There's these gorgeous overtones, especially when he's playing up high. And with every pick, you hear it scrape the string. So there's this kind of percussive element to the start of every note. And it's almost crumbling, but it somehow remains contained. It's gorgeous. I honestly believe it's one of the greatest tones ever put to tape. So to the best of my knowledge, David Gilmour was using a Fender Strat, a fuzz face, I believe like a color sound boost, some sort of delay, perhaps like an echo rec, and then there was usually like a plate or hall reverb there too. And I'm not going to use any of that. What I'm going to use is this Goblin tone distorter, and I'm going to max the volume, max the fuzz, and keep the drive around somewhere between 2 and 3 o'clock. And I'm also going to use the CXM 1978 from Chase Bliss and Meris. And even though I would imagine that it's a plate reverb or a hall reverb on the recording for Time, I actually set this as a room with like a really long decay. So it's like a huge room. And to me, whether or not it's accurate or not, it just sounds phenomenal. And that's what I went with. Now I'll once again be using my 2013 Gibson Les Paul with Sunbear 59 PAFs. So obviously I'm not using anything close to the gear Gilmour was using, but I found that this tone nails it. For me, I think it nails it. So if I may, I'll tell a quick story about this. You know, I grew up with these records. This is how I learned to play guitar. I'm self-taught. So when I was learning to play, I would just listen to records and play along and by ear try to figure out what they were playing. And that's how I learned. Back in the 1900s, we didn't have internet and there was no way to learn what people were playing other than by doing it like this. You could buy like tab books and stuff, but I didn't have money to do that. And I was honestly a bit too lazy and impatient to do that anyway. So I would listen to records and I would play along. And, every time I needed to go back, I'd restart the needle or rewind the tape or, rewind the CD. And that's how I learned how to play guitar. So all of these records are super important to me. My teachers were Zeppelin records and Sabbath records and Pink Floyd records and Jethro Tull and Jeff Beck. And, later on, guys, like Guns N' Roses and Aerosmith and Alice in Chains and Soundgarden. And then when I started getting into like, Bill Frisell and going further down the rabbit hole with like Leadbelly and Muddy Waters. But I would just listen to their records and learn how to play like that. So these songs are so important to me. And all of these guys are literal heroes of mine. So when I got this comment, even though I answered it, I thought it would be fun to actually try to recreate this tone with just this Goblin pedal and, a reverb. And I found something really interesting that happened. I've heard this song Time hundreds of times, 1,000 times. I don't know. I've heard it so much. Dark Side of the Moon was a record I obsessed over. I ate and slept this record for a period of time. And I've heard it, I've heard bands play it. I've heard it in bars. I've heard it in clubs. I've, seen them play it. I've heard this song so many times that it's really burned in my mind, but I've never really sat down and listened to it at this point in my life now. So, when you're a kid and you listen to it, it's, I think no matter when you hear it, it's beautiful. It's such beautiful music and the lyrics are so powerful. And But at this formative time, when you're learning about what music is and you hear this song, it really kind of changes you. But at that time, you have no perspective of, you know, what time is. You're so early on the spectrum of it that it's hard to understand what this song is actually about, which makes it all the more impressive that it was written by, young men in their 20s. So, I listening to it as a kid, I loved it so much, and now as an adult, I'm 40. I have my own business. I'm a single dad. So listening to it now was a really intense experience. I sat down to listen to it because I wanted to kind of play along to the solo and try to figure out how it went. So I listened to it a few times and played along, and then I just sat and read the lyrics as the song was playing, and I had this incredibly moving experience. I started crying almost immediately. Being at where I'm at now in my life, I could see, my journey and time I've wasted or utilized. And looking at my son, I could see him going through that. And then our time now, my relationship with it. As a parent, you're always kind of face to face with perspective and the past and, your mortality and the approaching future. So I had this really beautiful and intense experience listening to this song, all because of this question. So, Jason, thank you so much for asking. It led me to somewhere really kind of profound and important, and I just can't um, overstate how appreciative I am of that experience and opportunity. So, thank you. All right, let's get to it. So, comment below what you think of the tone. Did I nail it? Did I not? I think I did. Let me know what you think. All right, there you go. That was the Goblin tone distorter once again, but this time trying to recreate the lead tone of David Gilmour's Time solo from Dark Side of the Moon. Thank you so much for watching. If this is your first time here and you liked what you saw, please consider subscribing. And if you're already subscribed, welcome back. Thank you so much for your support. I really, really appreciate it. Until next time, be well. Peace.